Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to this Autodesk Manufacturing webinar. My name is Clinton Perry. I'm one of a team of product marketing managers responsible for Autodesk's portfolio of advanced manufacturing products, and it is my pleasure and honour today to provide you with an update on the latest release of Autodesk Powermill, that being the 2020.1 release. So over the course of the next 30 minutes or so, I'm probably not going to reveal an awful lot in terms of future functionality, but we will display our Autodesk Safe Harbor statement regardless, just in case I do mention anything that doesn't actually make it into future releases of Powermill. Although, as I say, I'm fairly confident the content we're providing with you today is going to be included in the 2020.1 release. So as I say, we're going to dig into the Powermill 2020.1 highlights. So what are the new functions that we've included in Powermill? What improvements have we made? What are the hidden benefits that we've included in terms of fixing bugs and so on? We're also going to provide a reminder of the 2020.0 release that was issued earlier in the year. We'll summarise the major highlights of that release. We'll also give you some links that you can use to go and watch a similar webinar to this one that digs into the 2020.0 highlights, as well as some tutorial videos that you can access to learn more about those improvements. We'll also then provide you with some links so that we can explain where customers can go to learn more, where customers can go to download this update, and where prospects who are not using Powermill today can request an evaluation so that they can start to access the goodness that Powermill offers them and their business. So let's carry on then. Let's look at the Powermill 2020.1 release and explain what it includes. Well, continuing the focus of the release of Powermill 2020.0, Autodesk has improved the speed, usability, quality and reliability of Powermill in this latest 2020.1 update. So let's take a look at some of the highlights of this specific release. Now, Powermill 2020.0 was released in May 2019, and one of the major highlights was the inclusion of functionality to automatically add fillets to the internal corners of Cad models during the calculation of specific toolpaths. Now, this helps to avoid situations where the cutting tool might engage into heavy areas of stock, and in doing so, that could cause spikes in the tool loads that could result in tools breaking and wearing prematurely. Now, the 2020.0 release initially included this model filleting capability, but it was limited to optimized constant Z and steep and shallow finishing toolpaths only. It didn't work with other strategies. But the 2020.1 release now relaxes this limitation and allows the model filleting functionality to be applied to all 3-axis finishing strategies. So that includes raster, constant Z, 3D offset, flowline, all of the projected toolpaths and more. So obviously the key benefits here are you get that protection of the cutting tool, minimises the likelihood of tool breakages, it eases off on the tool wear for a broader range of machining strategies. And this functionality is applicable to all variants of Powermill, so that's standard, premium and ultimate. And you'll notice in the bottom right hand corner of this particular deck there's a link to a YouTube video. If you have the deck, you can click on that and watch the video for yourself. If you don't have this deck, we're going to provide you with the URL that you can access these tutorials and more later on in this webinar. Now, in the category of usability, Powermill 2020.1 includes the ability to export CAD models using some additional file formats. So in addition to the existing DGK and DMT files, users can choose to export models using IGES, STEP, ASYS-SAT, Wavefront OBJ files and PDF 3D file types also. Now, we've included additional native file formats including Rhino, additive manufacturing and a Fusion modeling data file, which is going to make it easier for you to share data from Powermill to Fusion 360. And ultimately, the key benefit here is it's going to simplify and make it easier for CAD and CAM team members of your manufacturing company to collaborate on projects, making it far easier for you to transfer data from the CAM world to the CAD world and back again. Now, automatic collision avoidance was first included in Powermill 2019, a year or so ago. And this was a major revolution in Powermill and in the fact that it simplifies the programming of complex parts on 5-axis machines by offering users a simple automatic option to control how the 5-axis tool axis motion it behaves. And the key thing here is that the automatic option works regardless of the toolpath type being calculated or indeed the shape of the model that's being machined. That's a major bonus there in terms of Powermill's usability. Now, and this ultimately helps programmers to produce safe, predictable and smooth 5-axis tool motion that's going to allow them to cut their parts. There's an added benefit here in that this feature also allows programmers to program their parts using fewer toolpaths, a smaller number of toolpaths, simply because parts can be cut with one toolpath where previously they may have had to have used multiples. So this is a big benefit to offer 5-axis programmers. Now, the release of Powermill 2020.0 saw significant improvements in terms of reliability. So we found more collisions, we identified them and we avoided them safely, whereas in the 2019 release, maybe we found the collision and just simply removed it. So the toolpath was safe, but incomplete. Now, this focus on usability and reliability has continued with the release of 2020.1, and it includes some additional significant gains in terms of speed. So in one particular customer example, the processing time for a particular part has been reduced from 9 hours and 30 minutes, that was with the previous release, 2020.0, all the way down to just over 2.5 hours. That's a reduction of more than 73%, and yet we still create exactly the same smooth, safe, predictable 5-axis tool motion. So the key benefits here, well, the functionality obviously avoids tool breakages, it simplifies 5-axis programming, and it protects workpiece, tool and CNC machine. But the real benefit of the 2020.1 release is increased reliability, greater likelihood of finding and avoiding collisions and doing it safely, but also doing it faster. That's a significant benefit. Now, continuing on the subject of speed improvements, and continuing the work that we started with the 2020.0 release, where we saw significant calculation speed ups for many different toolpath types, in Powermill 2020.1, we have continued to improve the performance of a number of toolpath strategies. So that includes corner finishing, area clearance, rest finishing. This particular slide shows the times taken to calculate a corner finishing toolpath on 3 different customer supplied parts. So here we're comparing the performance of Powermill 2019.2 with the performance of Powermill 2020.1. And we can see significant performance gains there. So test model 1 originally took just over 6 hours to calculate this one toolpath. In this latest update, that time is reduced to just under 3 hours. It's around about a 53% reduction in time. And you can see 41% reduction, 29% reduction on the other 2 test models. But crucially, it does certainly look as if the biggest benefit can be had when dealing with large and or complex models where the calculation time has been quite high in previous releases. Changing subject now, looking at usability and specifically Powermill's graphical user interface, we've made a number of small but hopefully very impactful changes to the GUI. The first one is the introduction of clearer NC program status icons, and you can see those icons running vertically down the center of this slide. Now we're using colors to identify different types of NC program. So the top icon, which has a light grey background, shows an NC program that is ready to be post-processed, but it has not been post-processed yet. Once that NC program has been post-processed, the icon changes colour. It turns green. So it's visually reminding you which ones have been saved out to the hard drive and which ones are waiting to be saved. If you subsequently make an edit to this NC program after post-processing, the icon changes colour again. It changes to have a dark grey background, making it obvious which ones have been edited and may need additional work as well as post-processing to the hard drive. And the key benefit here is it's going to make it easier for our programmers to identify which programs need to be saved out, which ones need further attention, and hopefully it's going to help avoid and reduce the number of human errors that can creep into programming workflows. The second area where the GUI has been improved is in the browser, or the Explorer. And in the Explorer, you're now able to select, move, delete multiple folders, whereas previously you would only be able to select and delete folders one at a time. Again, a small improvement to the usability of Powermill, but will have an impact on the joy that our users get when they're experiencing the Powermill product. The third and final improvement we made, at least that I'm mentioning on this slide, to the graphical user interface is in the post-processor dialog box that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. This box can now be resized. So you can grab hold of the box and drag it to make it bigger or smaller, and making it easier for you to list all of your post-processors and maybe reducing the amount of scrolling that you have to do to go up and down your list. So again, those three improvements of the GUI collectively should have a positive impact on the usability of Powermill across all variants, Standard, Premium and Ultimate. Changing focus now onto reliability and quality, the Powermill 2020.1 release includes some fixes to the quality of 3D offset finishing toolpaths. And these are fixes in direct reaction to customer reports of problems. And these are a very small minority of cases where 3D offset finishing toolpaths could be calculated with localized spikes. And these typically occur on areas where there are steep sidewalls. And you can see some examples of that on the top right-hand image on this slide. So the spikes are clearly obvious on the left-hand side of that image. Now, if we recalculate that toolpath with Powermill 2020.1, you can see that the toolpath does no longer have those spikes. So that's, on this particular case, a marked improvement in the quality of the toolpath, which is going to benefit the end user because the end part that they cut is going to have a better surface finish, less need for manual polishing, and really as well, it's a small benefit, the program's going to run faster because it's a shorter NC program. So some real benefits to be had there. As I say, this is in a direct reaction to a small number of customers that complained with previous releases. So again, we're addressing not just new functionality, but fixing and improving the core capabilities of Powermill at the same time. Still on the subject of usability, and specifically focusing on raster finishing inside Powermill, those of you that are familiar with the raster strategy will know that there is an option to create a perpendicular pass. There's a tick box there that says perpendicular pass to allow your raster toolpath to have, as the name suggests, a perpendicular pass added to it. But that perpendicular pass can be optimized as well. You notice that second tick box on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, prior to the 2020.1 release, this tick box was not available if you wanted to combine these settings with an automatic collision avoidance switched on and, crucially, a tool axis set to vertical. So you could not access this combination of settings in Powermill 2020.0 and before. But with the 2020.1 release, we've fixed that. So now users are able to calculate a raster finishing toolpath with perpendicular pass switched on, optimizing the parallel pass with automatic collision avoidance switched on, and crucially that tool axis set to vertical. So again, that's just improving the flexibility of Powermill for our end users. Still on the subject of reliability and specifically on Powermill's cutter compensation, we were aware of a number of issues with cutter comp inside Powermill where the compensation data could be lost in certain situations, which could obviously cause quite catastrophic consequences when you get through to post-process the NC program out to the machine tool. So with the Powermill 2020.1 release, cutter compensation is correctly preserved. These are the three cases where it could have been lost previously. One, when editing a toolpath editing the toolpath orientation vectors and doing it using the DMC or dynamic machine control features of Powermill. So previously compensation data would be lost, now it is preserved. The second scenario is where you would be calculating toolpaths that contain overlapping leads and link moves. And in these situations, sometimes compensation can be switched off, but not back on again, or vice versa. Now the compensation data is correctly preserved, so it's switched on and off as expected. And the third and final area where compensation data could be lost, but is now preserved, is when you are verifying toolpaths. Obviously, that is a major benefit for anybody that's looking to use compensation on their 2D machining strategies. Benefits are obvious. Now we're able to output NC programs with compensation data switched on and off as expected. You've got a better quality of NC code, reduced likelihood of error, collisions, gouges, parts being damaged, and so on. And it's giving our users greater confidence that they can trust Powermill to generate the code that they need to cut their parts. On the subject of quality, and in particular looking at arc fitting in constant Z toolpaths, we've made this arc fitting significantly more reliable, specifically in the 2D corners of constant Z toolpaths when using automatic collision avoidance switched on. Now, you have to look quite closely, but if you look in the image on the top right-hand corner of the screen, and in particular that zoomed-in view where it says before, you look carefully, you'll see there's a few wobbles in the toolpath. These are wobbles that are being introduced by the automatic collision avoidance code, so that's where the tip of the tool is moving slightly. Remind that the green curves are representative of the tip of the tool, not the contact point. But in those areas, there could be a situation where the tool could collide and gouge with the component. And you can see those as those wobbles in the toolpath. Now, we've focused on this and we've addressed a small number of customer cases where the quality of arc fitting in these localized corners could be compromised and result in these sorts of issues. You can see the resulting toolpath in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Look closely in the zoomed-in view. You can see the previous toolpath displayed in grey. It's a very faint grey line, but the 2020.1 toolpath is now shown in green. So we can see that we're maintaining, we're tilting the tool correctly, so the automatic collision avoidance is working as expected, but it's doing so without producing toolpaths that include these small gouges. The key benefits there are obvious. We're improving the quality of the toolpath, we're reducing the likelihood of these gouges appearing on the part. That's going to produce a better quality component. Staying on the subject of quality, we have improved leads and links in a number of ways. The first is the fact that leads and links can now be safely edited for toolpaths where the tool axis elevation angle has been fixed. Previously, those toolpath leads and links could not be edited, and if you tried, you would experience various different problems. Now you're able to edit those leads and links and preserve the tool axis elevation angle that you've defined. The second area where we've improved leads and links, and this is particularly relevant in the images on the right hand side of the screen, is by avoiding unnecessary polygonization of arc lead moves for toolpaths where we've got an orientation vector which is a fixed direction. Now the images show this really nicely. The toolpath shown in the top right hand corner of the screen is a toolpath where lead moves have got orientation vectors. The toolpath has an orientation vector with a fixed direction, and you can see the lead moves are heavily polygonized. Lots of red dots you can see on those orange arc lead-in moves. Whereas the image on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen shows that those lead-in moves, it's exactly the same geometry, but now it is a circular interpolated move. It's an arc. So obviously that provides a number of benefits. Key benefits are increased flexibility as programmers have a greater level of control so that they can now edit those leads and links. That's the first improvement that we mentioned earlier on. The second benefit is that you've got leads and links that are not so polygonized. That's going to provide a toolpath that's slightly smaller. It's a better solution if you're trying to apply cutter compensation. It's a more robust solution for our end users. So to summarize, Powermill 2020.1 includes a number of significantly new capability, so new functionality, such as enhanced model exports, faster, more reliable collision avoidance, faster toolpath calculation, but we've continued to focus on overall usability, speed, quality of Powermill by fixing a number of customer reported issues and just improving the usability and user experience of Powermill more broadly. And that's by including things like the ability to manage multiple folders in your Explorer, the ability to access and optimize parallel paths in Raster, better quality of 3D offset finishing with those localized spikes being removed, and a more robust cutter compensation algorithm inside Powermill as well. Now, if you want to know more about the Powermill 2020.1 release, then I recommend that you visit the online help site, which is using the URL at the bottom of the screen. So we've talked about Powermill 2020.1. What about 2020.0? There are those of you who may well not have made the move from 2019 to 2020. Well, let's just recap some of the highlights of that 2020 release back in May of this year. Well, Powermill 2020 included multiple speed-ups to toolpath calculation, simulation, and verification. Commonly used toolpath types such as raster, corner finishing, constant Z, 3D offset, area clearance, all of these toolpaths processed faster with up to 67% faster calculation times in 2020 when compared with 2019. In many cases, Powermill 2020 is as fast or faster than legacy versions of Powermill such as 2016, and that's a version that many users still hold in high regard and think as being the benchmark, the fastest, best version of Powermill that we've released in some recent years. The 2020 release is significantly faster than 2019 and 2016 in many cases. Now, toolpath simulation and verification is also significantly faster in the 2020 release, with internal tests showing it to be as much as 33% faster than 2019. And as NC program verification uses the same underlying toolpath simulation code in the background, this is also faster than previous releases. Powermill 2020 makes better use of multi-threading on PCs with multiple cores, and that's specifically when calculating leads and links. And so as a result, this reduces the overall calculation time and allows programmers more time to explore alternative solutions and produce more efficient toolpaths for their specific needs. The next highlight that I'll pick out now is a new uphill corner finishing. And this is really, it's not a strategy, it's more an option that was added to corner finishing toolpaths. And this allows those corners to be cut in the upwards direction only. So not cutting the corner in a bidirectional up and down motion, literally just cutting the corner from the bottom up. And this radically changes the cutting forces on the cutting tool, and that reduces the likelihood of chatter, cutter vibration, and hopefully improves the quality of the machine part and prolongs the life of the cutting tool itself. Now, as we mentioned earlier on, Powermill 2020 also includes this model filleting capability that we talked about with the 2020.1 update. It was originally developed for Autodesk's HSM CAM product, and we identified that it was a really cool piece of functionality that we should add to Powermill. It offers major benefits, and as I mentioned before, it basically applies fillets to the internal corners of 3D CAD models during that toolpath calculation, and it helps minimize the likelihood of tools engaging into heavy stock. And those 3D models are cached with the toolpath, so they aren't recalculated unless absolutely necessary. And then finally, Powermill 2020.0 included a number of major improvements to the graphical user interface to just make it a more pleasant experience when using high-resolution monitors like 4K screens and so on. So we really don't want to dig into too much detail about the Powermill 2020.0 release, but if you would like to take a deeper dive into the major enhancements that we included in that release, I would recommend that you do one of two things. Either watch our webinar on demand, so that's a 50-minute webinar, much like this one that you're watching today, that goes into more details about the improvements that we've included in that release. Or if you just want to watch some of the tutorials that dig into some of the major highlights, you can visit our Powermill 2020 YouTube playlist. I provided a bit.ly link there, which will make it easier for you to find that or if you've got access to this presentation deck, click either of the two screen icons that are in the center of the slide. Okay, so we're nearly at the end of this presentation, and I hope you're sat there now thinking, oh my word, this is fantastic. How do I get hold of this great new update to the Powermill product? Well, the answer to that very much depends on whether you are an existing customer with an active license of the Powermill product, or maybe you are not using Powermill today and you're actively considering swapping from some other CAM system provided by somebody else. So in the case that you are an existing customer, we are targeting releasing the Powermill 2020.1 update around about the 15th of October 2019. So that's the date we're targeting. We may be a day either side of that, but that's where we're aiming at. Now, if you are an existing customer, you'll be notified automatically in a number of ways, but primarily using the Autodesk desktop app. Now that is accessible by looking for the Autodesk A icon in the taskbar in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Simply click on that and that will give you instructions how to access this latest update. Now if you don't have access to the desktop app, then you can visit your own account online at manage.autodesk.com. Obviously you'll need your business details to log into that account. Once you've logged in, you'll see a list of products that you're entitled to use. So here's a snapshot of my product entitlement. Simply click on the list to access your complete list of products. Select the product that you're interested in. Obviously, in this case, it's Powermill Ultimate. And click the download icon to download and install the Powermill product. Nice and simple. But what if you're not using Powermill today? Maybe you're using another CAM product and you've sat through this webinar today and maybe you considered Powermill in the past, but you really want to take that next step and learn more about Powermill's capabilities. Well, I would recommend that you visit our evaluation request page. That is at autodesk.com/Powermill-evaluation. And you can see a snippet taken from that page on the right hand side. Simply fill in your details in this form, so your name, your email address and so on, and one of our manufacturing specialists will contact you around the world to discuss your specific business challenges, the needs, your opportunities, and try to figure out whether Powermill is the best fit for you, or maybe there's an alternative Autodesk solution that we can offer you to help overcome your biggest challenges. Now, as part of an evaluation of Powermill, we can arrange software demonstrations, face-to-face meetings between our manufacturing specialists and your team, your CAM programmers, your machine operators, your heads of division and so on. We can also organise benchmarks to allow you to really build confidence that Powermill is going to offer you a significant benefit in terms of your business. And maybe, if it's appropriate, offer you access to a temporary version of Powermill so you can really get your hands on the software and try it for yourself. And with that, we're at the end of our time together. So I hope you found this webinar informative, educational. It's a fantastic update to Powermill. We continue to put improvements, new functionality into the Powermill product. So yes, once again, thank you very much for your time today. I hope you have a fantastic day. And with that, I will say thank you and goodbye.